Okay, so we're going to look at section 3. And section 3 has a lot of information in it, so I'm going to divide it into 2 sections, or 2 parts. So let's just briefly recap. We started by talking about what exactly the self is, with the ideas of self-concept, self-esteem, those kinds of things. And then we looked at how we present the self. How do we want other people to look at us? How do we want to be perceived? This next section is going to look at the idea of when we choose to let people know more information about us, called Disclosing the Self or self-disclosure. There are 2 kinds of self-disclosures. One is where we tell someone something. We choose to share information of our own volition. The other is when someone asks us a question and we have to decide, are we going to be honest or are we going to choose alternatives? Okay. So what's important to know about self-disclosure is that it is information that is purposefully communicated to another person. It does not include things where, someone finds out something about you by accident. Okay. So there are 4 components that go into, there's 4 distinguishing factors about self-disclosure. So the first one is honesty. So if you are telling people something and it's not true, it's not self-disclosure, it's lying. Okay. The next concept is depth. Usually self-disclosing is information that it's not superficial. It's something that is more personal for you. The third component or distinguishing factor is availability of information. If I share something with you that is easily obtainable, because, if I say to you, oh, I have to tell you I have purple hair, and you say, yes, Professor Yao, and I've been on a video call with you, and I saw, although I thought it looked more blue. Okay. Or if it's something that I could find out because it's a matter of public record, that's not really self-disclosure either. And then the last one is the context of sharing. So there's a difference like where you are when you share this information. It's sometimes I'm tripping over my words here. Where you decide to share information can make a difference on whether it is self-disclosure or not. So I have this example. There's a difference between saying to somebody, I don't like clams. We're going to go out to, somebody says, hey, Professor Yahweh, or hey, Marguerite, let's go out. There's this great seafood place, and let's go out and have lunch. And I could say, I don't like clams, which is self-disclosure. It's honest. They don't know that about me. The context is appropriate versus I don't want to go to the restaurant because I don't like clams, or I don't want to go to the restaurant because I don't like you. Okay. That I would say is in the area of the depth of information. Okay. So I wanted to recap what the textbook says when we're thinking about what self-disclosure is. Self-disclosure has the self as the subject. It's all about you. It's intentional. It's not something that you slipped. It's directed at another person. So you're telling that person. It is honest. It is revealing. It contains information generally unavailable from other sources, and it gains much of its intimate nature from the context in which it is expressed. Okay. So if you think about it, that means that there's not an awful lot of what we say that is true self-disclosure. And maybe another way to think about self-disclosure is these three components. It's intentional, it's significant, and it's not otherwise known. Okay, so we're going to look at two models of self-disclosure. The first one is called the social penetration model that Altman and Taylor designed. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the next slide. Well, okay, and then I'll bounce back again. Okay, so there are two dimensions that they look at here, and one is the breadth of what you're disclosing, and that's like the range. So you look at this, let's say these are two people in a relationship, and they're two friends, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there's 7 different topics that they talk about. So that's the breadth. If they talk about only 2, it's not very broad. If they talk about 20, it's broader. And then the other dimension that we look at is the depth. How personal, how deep do you dive? And what you see in the middle is this core. I would say that in very few of our relationships do we ever get to that close to the core. But if you look at this person, they're two topics that they don't really get into much depth over: family background and feelings about my physical appearance. But they talk an awful lot about my relationships with members of the opposite sex and career ambitions. And probably a close is also academic life. So what I'd like you to do is to think about someone that you would think of maybe a more casual relationship with, perhaps a coworker or a classmate in other classes. Think about the different kinds of topics you talk about, and then think about how deep you go in those topics. And then do the same thing with someone that you feel you have a closer relationship with, a good friend or a romantic partner, a spouse, and then see what the difference is. Do you think the difference is more the breadth, I hate that word, of what you talk about, or is it more into the depth of what you talk, how deep you go into the topics that you're talking about? Okay, so let me go back. And then what they say is, think about this when you're thinking about the depth of what you share. The development of the relationship is a progression from the periphery, from the outside to the center. And you probably realize when you're looking at the people that you're closest to, you share more intimate information. So they talk about 4 different kinds of information, and as we go through each of them, it gets a little bit deeper. So the first one is cliches. This are the, how are you doing? Oh, fine. How about you? They're these stock responses that you use cliches a lot, I would argue, with people that you don't know especially well. Okay, to get a little bit deeper would be the level of facts, and it can be self-disclosure, a fact, like if you say, I hate Mondays, that's almost a cliche. But if you say to another student, I really hate the way this professor does such and such, maybe that's a little more self-disclosing. Or even, this kid who sits next to me, I knew him in elementary, middle school, and high school, and I can't stand him. That's a fact, and that's a little deeper. So facts kind of straddle the line between definitely not self-disclosure and possibly self-disclosure. Opinions tend to be more of a self-disclosure because, if I say, what's your opinion on our governor? Well, that's going to tell me a lot about you. Or what's your opinion on face masks? Or what do you think of Adam Sandler? I'm laughing because he's not my favorite. So if you're telling me, oh, I love this movie, and I say, oh, I think he's a terrible actor, that was self-disclosure, and it might have an impact on our relationship. But the one that is most definitely an example of self-disclosure would be feelings, because it's something that, and we will talk about emotions more in chapter 8. But um, if I look at you, I don't necessarily know how you're feeling. Even someone who knows you very well does not always know how you're feeling, or if they know how you're feeling, they don't know why you're feeling it. So if someone says, I like the example in the textbook, I don't think you're telling me what's on your mind. Okay, that's an opinion. I don't think you're telling me what's on your mind, and I'm angry. Ooh, now that's your feeling. Okay. So Altman and Taylor social penetration model. It's just, this is an interesting way for you to look at relationships and see really how deep they are. I know when I was probably, elementary school through high school, my father used to make this distinction between friends and acquaintances. Because kids, everyone they meet is their new friend, right? When they're, I don't know, those of you who have young children realize that at a certain point, this is my friend. Well, you just met them 5 minutes ago at the beach, so how can they be your friend? But sometimes, and I'm sorry, my allergies are bad today, so I'm sniffling and drinking a lot of water. So I would say friends are the people that you actually disclose some things to, and acquaintances, probably not. All right, this next one is actually my favorite. It's called, I pronounce it Johari because I think it sounds cool. It was developed by Joseph Lutz and Harry Ingram, and they combine their first names, so maybe it's Johari, but I like Johari. It just sounds classy. Okay, so this is for you not to look at your relationship with other people, but to think about yourself. So this square, this rectangle is all about you. Everything there is to know about you. And then this first column is everything that you know about yourself. And this column is everything that you don't know about yourself. This column is everything that other people know. And this row. And this row is about things that people don't know. So your open quadrant is things that you know about yourself and other people know about you. So, and other people know about you because maybe you tell them about it. So I say to people, I really like the work of Dr. Brene Brown. I will talk about her definitely in chapter 8. Okay. And okay, that's cool. What about the things that other people can see about me, but I don't know about myself? And so somebody says, I'm talking to my husband, and he says, you always interrupt me. I'm like, oh, wow, I did not realize that. Well, once I realize that, it moves to the open. It's no longer blind. So once somebody tells you that, okay. There's a great episode of How I Met Your Mother where I don't remember what it's called, where there's always the sound of breaking glass as people realize something that they hadn't known before. All right. The third quadrant, the hidden things that you know and you don't share with other people. And as soon as you share something, it's no longer here. So if I were to say to you, I had a friend, we were driving into New York City once, and of course to get into the city, you have choices of bridges, and we're driving in, and as we come to this bridge, she says, I am terrified to drive over bridges. Okay, if she hadn't told me about that, I would not have known. There used to be a show on TV, I think it was called My Secret Addiction, where people would go on TV, this just boggles my mind, and share with whoever's watching things about themselves. I remember there was a woman who liked to eat laundry detergent, I think powdered laundry detergent. Okay, so at that point, it moves from the hidden to the open. The fourth quadrant is things that nobody knows about you and you don't know, possibly because you haven't been in that situation. Like I don't know how I would act in a life-threatening emergency. I like to think I'd be calm, cool, and collected, but would I? I don't know. So this is really an excellent way to think about yourself and what is important to realize. This is presented as if everything is equal, but let's say you are a person who shares everything. This rectangle would be possibly much bigger, and this hidden would be a little bit like that. So, or if maybe you have spent a lot of, you're a very introspective person, and possibly you've done counseling, your known to self could be very big and your not known could be relatively small. But what's interesting with this is if you have a relationship and it doesn't seem to be going very well, what you can do is, do this for yourself and then think about the person that you're having the relationship with. And if you do a Johari window for them and you flip it, you might realize that your open quadrant is very big and theirs is very small. And so that's why there's a lot of stuff that you don't know about them. Or vice versa. You might know that there's someone who is always what you would consider oversharing. So their open window is very large and yours is smaller. Okay, so anyways, these are two interesting models that can look at how much people self-disclose, or you, since it is all about you. So let's take a look at why would somebody choose to self-disclose? What are some of the benefits of self-disclosure? We know that it's basically what you're doing is called privacy management. You're trying to find a good balance between I'm an open book, I'm going to tell you everything, or I don't want you to know anything about me, because neither of those are good. You have to find some place in the middle. Okay, so why would you choose to self-disclose? One reason you might is catharsis. It feels good to let somebody know how you feel. You get it off your chest. We'll talk about the risks of this on the next slide. Okay, the next one is self-clarification. Sometimes you need to talk things out so that you need to talk it out so you can figure it out. You talk yourself into understanding. What's that called? I forget it. Oh, talk the problem out. Okay. A third one would be self-validation. You are talking about something because you want the other person to say, I think you did a good job. A couple of weeks ago, I said to my husband, I sent kind of a nastily worded email to my boss, and I explained the situation, and he said, I think you did the right thing. Okay. I didn't think I did, but he thought I did, so that kind of made me feel better, and I apologized later. Okay. Reciprocity is the next one, where you disclose because you want the other person to disclose. I mean, I think of this as kids do this a lot, where they'll say something and then the other kid will respond, like the little kid says, I have 2 sisters, and the first person says, I have 1 sister and 2 brothers. I mean, it's not huge self-disclosure, but when we self-disclose, we hope that other people do too. The next one is impression formation, and we share information with people because we want them usually to think that we are funny, capable, intelligent, whatever. You're going to disclose whatever it is that's going to help you make the impression that you want. The next one is relationship maintenance and enhancement. For the relationship to flourish, there's got to be some kind of self-disclosure. If you maybe have had a relationship with someone where you feel that they never tell you anything about them. So even after being friends for, I don't know, 2 years, there's still a lot of information you don't know about this person. And you don't need to know everything, but if you realize, wow, can we really be friends if I don't know this information? So a really good friend of mine texted me and says, can you believe my husband does not know what my favorite kind of ice cream is? And she called her sister, who didn't know either. And I said, I'm not sure I do either. Okay, so I think she felt that this was something as close, people who were close to her, we should have known. Although, to be fair for me, I've never gone out to have ice cream with her. But now I know. Well, I don't really, because it has chocolate peanut butter, I think. So with the idea of self-disclosure is we like a person, we feel comfortable with a person, so we disclose. And if we disclose information to a person, we like them. Okay, it makes us like them better, which is kind of weird. And if we disclose to a person, they like us, and so they disclose. So it's just this whole disclosing makes us feel closer to people. And the last benefit of self-disclosure is if we have a moral obligation. If the big one is any sexually transmitted disease. If you are going to have a relationship with someone, you need to share them. You need to share information with them. Okay, so this is great. Yeah, I'm especially thinking about the idea of relationship maintenance. If you want a relationship to flourish, you need to disclose. Well, what about the risks? Because there certainly are risks. I wasn't sure where to tell you to look at these videos, but I think because I'm not sure if it's a benefit or a risk. But in the section where I have exercises and videos, there are 2 commercials for Citibank where they have people saying exactly what they're thinking rather than doing the kind of social nicety. So take a look at those and then let me know what you think. Was it a benefit or was it a risk? Okay. The textbook on page 90 and 91 does a really good job giving you examples of the risks of self-disclosure. The first one is rejection. What if you share something with someone and they say, okay, no. In the first example, they use hits close to home because this actually happened to me, where I say to someone, this is many, many years ago, I really like you. I'd like to take our relationship to the next level. And the guy said, yeah, I'm going back to my old girlfriend. Okay, that felt really bad. So that was a rejection. You could be making a negative impression by what you share. Well, first, definitely when he said, I'm going back to my girlfriend, that was a negative impression. I thought, you're a jerk, which was probably not the exact word that I thought. Okay. There could be a decrease in relational satisfaction. Let's see. Where, my husband says to me, hey, I want to go out with, we've been invited to Omar and Florence's house, and I said, I really don't like them, and they happen to be good friends of his. Ooh, he's not going to feel too happy with me. It could be that you have a loss of control because when you if you share something personal, loss of influence. Sorry, loss of influence and loss of control to me are very similarly tied. Where the person says, "I'm sorry, I was sarcastic. Sometimes I do this because if I put you down, I feel better about myself." And then the person goes, "Well, you're never going to be able to do that again." So you lose influence. But I think that, to me, that's also a loss of control. Okay. Probably for most of us, the reason we don't self-disclose is we don't want to hurt the other person. I always use this example. Your grandmother has made something for you. She has knit you a sweater. and it has taken her a lot of time, but it happens to be a color, a style, whatever that you will not, you just wouldn't, you won't wear it. Do you tell her, thank you, Grandma, I just don't like this sweater? Probably not, because you don't want to hurt her. Okay, so here are your guidelines for self-disclosure, because there are risks, there are benefits. Is the other person important to you? If yes, you can't always keep things to yourself. Whether it's things about the other person that you don't particularly care for, or things about yourself that you feel are important for them to know. There's, of course, going to be a risk. Is it reasonable? Okay, or if you disclose, is the person going to say, that's it, we're not friends anymore? Is the self-disclosure appropriate? And part of this is what stage are you in your relationship? You know, if you're just starting a friendship and you disclose something that is very personal, the other person might get scared and say, this is too soon in the relationship. Is the disclosure reciprocated? If you disclose something and the person, they don't have to reciprocate immediately, but they never self-disclose to you, you have to wonder, is this a relationship that is going to develop? So I'm going to keep working on it? Or is this one of these, it's my coworker, so I'm just going to stop disclosing things? And then overall, is the result going to be constructive? If you tell someone something because it's more about them than about you, are they going to change their behavior? Okay, so they have the example of Beyonce here, because in her album, what was it called? Was it, I don't remember. She talked about how she felt about her relationship with Jay-Z because he was not especially faithful. Okay. Is that a good thing? Was it appropriate? Was it not appropriate? There's people are split on this. So you have to decide for yourself. Now, before, I'm going to take a break and then get to the second part of this chapter, but I want to reiterate, when you are self-disclosing, it doesn't mean that it is your deepest, darkest secrets. Last year I ran over a man and I just throw him in the bushes. No, it doesn't have to be something like that. It can be something like, I don't know, I really like you, I'd like to spend more time with you. It could be something like, last week, we went to see this movie and I know you liked it, but I just don't like action adventure movies, or I can't stand romance movies, whatever it is. So remember, it's just information that the other person doesn't know, that you have shared intentionally, and that it is something that is significant, meaning it's important to you. Okay, so let's take a break. I can blow my nose, and we will resume this later.